Ladies and gentlemen, they finally did it. After a season and a half of blueballing us, the fall of Reach has finally begun. And Jesus Christ almighty, we need to talk about it. Now, this episode was all over the place, and I mean that in a stronger sense than ever before. A lot of it was actually quite good. In fact, you know what? I'd even go as far as saying a lot of it was pretty damn good, but it was caveated by three of the absolute... I'm laughing just thinking about it. Three of the absolute dumbest, most brain cell melting decisions that this show has ever made.
What is happening right now?
I'm not feeling so well.
So, let's talk about it. So, the episode begins right where the last one ends. The fall of Reach has begun. The Covenant have started blowing stuff up in Reach City. That's one thing I'm not quite sure the logic behind, because, like, they're not glassing the city, they're not orbitally bombarding it. There's just, like, random explosions going off in Reach City. Not quite sure what's causing all this damage yet, because there's been no glassing beam. And somehow I doubt the Covenant were able to just, like, sneak bombs into Reach City, which is strange, considering that surely somebody would have seen the Covenant infiltrate the city, considering it was, like, supposedly the capital in this timeline, and plant bombs, you'd think, but no one seemed to. Either way, the fall of Reach begins, the city starts blowing up, and I'm not gonna lie, a lot of the scenes in the streets, we'll touch more on this later, but they were actually, I liked them quite a lot. They were really good. They felt very erratic and very imposing, the way that the streets are just getting burnt up. Chief and Perez are fleeing through the streets as civilians are just getting destroyed by all these explosions, but then they get to some place a few blocks away where Chief actually went to go meet his Joy, his Cortana version of Joy from Blade Runner, and it goes from being like everyone obviously fleeing the explosions that are very loud and massive to everyone just kind of like being chill in this like a few blocks away place as if nothing's happening, which I thought was quite weird. But they aren't chill for very long, because very quickly after, a ton of camoed elites pop up and kind of just come out of nowhere and start slaughtering them, which was really cool. We'll touch more on this in a second. Oh, tore his mandible off. Half-short origin story. As Chief and Corporal Perez are fleeing, they go through a bunch of shops and stuff, and they get to this one shop where they're holding out for a while with a hatchet, funnily enough. Chief is holding a steel hatchet. My man got 5 attack. And they get to this one shop that is a Earth 20th and 21st century wares, like a trinket shop with like loads of old collectibles from Earth in our modern day, like a typewriter, some other stuff, a chessboard, and then an original Xbox, which small little detail, but I thought it was kind of cool. Meanwhile, elsewhere on Reach, in the Oni FleetCom facility or something like that, Soren and Halsey start fleeing from their, like, imaginary cell, and I did really like the presentation of these scenes, with Halsey and Soren walking through these very claustrophobic, very narrow, underground tunnels that Oni have built, that are lit in this very imposing red light, and this very ominous distant sounds of explosions above them, and occasionally dust starts coming down. These scenes, especially with the interaction between Soren and Halsey, considering this is the first time that Soren has met Halsey since he washed out of the Spartan 2 program, was pretty cool. I actually really like the presentation of these scenes and the way that the two interacted. Moving back up to the streets, it's absolute hell up there. None of the Spartans are in their armor yet. We'll talk about that in a second. But there's Marines in the streets, there's civilians, everyone is fighting the Covenant. One thing I did notice in this that I really wish they'd gone for more was using the game's sound effects for guns. I just wish they were using, like, classic Bungie era sound effects for all the guns, because none of them really sound recognizable. Like, if you played a BR sound firing in that street, you'd instantly be like, oh, there's a Marine firing a BR, or there's a Marine firing an assault rifle, or there's a Marine firing a Warthog chain gun. But none of the sounds were from the games. They were just like random sound effects that you'd see in like anything, which, funny enough, actually is what Bungie sound effects were. They were, for the most part, stock sound effects with effects added. But either way, I just wish they'd used actual recognizable sounds for the weapons. That applies to everything in the show. I wish they'd used stuff to make it feel a bit more recognizable, because none of these guns sounded like Halo guns. They just sounded like generic guns that I'd hear in any kind of sci-fi or even modern day show. as Chief, Kai, and a bunch of the other survivors are moving through the buildings, there's a lot of really cool one-take scenes in this, which are, people were saying a bit like Infinite. I disagree. They felt honestly more like 1917 style, like very shaky cam one-take shots, which I really enjoy. Again, I mentioned it last episode, but True Detective episode, season 1, episode 4, did that amazingly. So did 1917. And I actually think that it was used pretty well in these scenes. They felt very erratic and very kind of tense and on the ground, very gritty, and I like the way they were presented. But there's one scene where they're all moving through this building and they're getting chased by a bunch of elites, and again, this applies to how the elites are presented overall in this show. The elites aren't really characterized like elites. They feel more like a cross between like the brutes, and this is going to sound like a weird comparison, but World War Z zombies, the way that the zombies moved specifically in the movie World War Z, they move and behave very similar to a combo of those two. They move very frantically and erratically, rather than in like a kind of cool and collected, honor-bound way that the elites that we know would move. It's maybe a little bit of a nitpick. Actually, no, you know what? I hate that term. It's not a nitpick at all. It's a very valid criticism. The elites very much move like aggressive alien zombies. Like, honestly, if the Flood moved this way, I'd be like, okay, that's pretty good. But their elites, they're like the complete opposite of that, and I feel like it doesn't really nail the unique characteristics of the elites as a species and as warriors. Okay, a quick break from talking about the anomaly, shall we say, that is the Halo TV show. If you want to play actual Halo, and in style, then look no further than my Flood-themed PCs made in partnership with Apex Gaming PCs. With 3 builds to choose from, the Pure Form build, the Gravemind build, and the Primordial build, there's a PC here for anybody to run Halo and any other game like a goddamn dream. And better yet, prices have just been slashed by 30% site-wide. So head on over to the link in the description and get yourself a PC juiced up by the Flood. When they get back into the street, there's a scene with a Wraith, which is actually really cool. Again, very imposing. Seeing it slowly move towards you out of the fog and the smoke at the end of the street as it was firing mortars over the survivors was really cool. Again, I wish they used the classic game sound effects as opposed to, well, I couldn't even tell it was a Wraith until Riz literally shouts Wraith. I was like, oh, okay, it's a Wraith, that's cool. I just wish they had the scream of the Wraith mortar. It wasn't there, but either way, the Wraith looked sick, and also the way that it went out was pretty cool. Lewis, the Spartan 2 washout, basically, okay, I can't say that word on YouTube. He game end bombs himself to destroy it, which is actually really cool. I kind of like that. The whole vibe of the survivors moving through the city and through the streets in particular as they're under attack by the Covenant and as the bombs are going off from somewhere was honestly a really cool vibe. It kind of reminded me of a combination of Reach, a little bit actually of Landfall, and also Terminator 2's future war scenes, or just Terminator's future war scenes in general. It was a cool combination of all 3 of those vibes, and I really liked it. When Chief and Perez get back to FleetCom, they separate, and as Chief's about to walk off and go and get his armor, Perez is like, so that's it? You're not going to say goodbye or anything? And Chief just stands there silently, which was like, unironically, the most Master Chief thing that Master Chief has ever done in this show. Like, the way that, honestly, Pablo Schreiber acted this was exactly how Chief would have acted it in the games. It was exactly how Chief would have behaved. That's unironically the most Master Chief thing that Master Chief has ever done in this show. But don't worry, it's caveated by the first of the 3 exceptionally brain-meltingly stupid decisions made in this episode, and this one I worry is going to carry forward for the next few episodes. So last episode, Ackerson and a bunch of the UNSC and ONI high-value targets basically just fled Reach. They ran away because they knew it was screwed, basically, and by the sounds of it, according to Keys, they took the Spartans' armor with them. That means that for this entire episode, there is not one shot, not a single scene of a Spartan, not even like Chief in Mjolnir. Mjolnir isn't in this episode at all, and by the sounds of it, it's not going to be for the Fall of Reach unless some miraculous random event occurs where it happens to fall back down or they find more armor or something. That was so dumb, man. Like, one of the biggest criticisms people have had with the show is how much time Chief in particular spends out of his armor, or with his helmet off and also out of his armor. And now we have the entire Fall of Reach going on, and Master Chief doesn't have his Mjolnir. I don't care about the narrative elements of that. You got to look at that from like a presentation perspective, right? It's just not right? Like, we want to see Chief and Silver Team defending Reach in their Mjolnir, not just as, like, people. They're Spartans. That's the main element of their character. I don't care what any person writing this show says. The main element of any Spartan's character is their Mjolnir. I'm sorry, it just is. And the fact that they're probably not going to have Mjolnir for any of this is baffling to me. That is a stupid decision. Anyways, moving on, they're in like a field hospital in Fleetcom's base or hangar or something, and there's actual gore here, which was really, really cool. We saw some gore in season 1. I don't think there's really been any so far in this season, but there's a scene with a Marine that's had his leg blown off, which is something that, I can't believe I'm saying this, again, like I said in, I think, my video on the pilot episode, I wish the game could actually take something from that, because I want that kind of gore in the games. Like, unironically, I would love it if Halo games got, like, Gears of War levels of gore, and this kind of was like that, man. Like, I like seeing this. It just adds to the veracity of what's going on, and it makes the events of the Fall of Reach seem even more severe than they already are. This is where Keyes gives his speech as well that we heard in the trailer, and again, I've got to say, the writing and delivery of this speech was excellent. It honestly was really, really, really good. It reminded me of that speech that Cutter gives the crew of Marines on the Spirit of Fire in Halo Wars 2 that was really, really good as well when they first encountered the Banished. It just was one of those speeches that really like gets you hyped. He's like, oh yeah, I want to die for this. I want to die for my species. I want to die for this. And that was obviously the whole point of the speech. He was basically saying to the Marines that if you choose to stay here, you will die, but you'll also give like your families and children a chance to survive and make it in a world or a universe where the Covenant doesn't exist because you stay behind to destroy them, which was very, very cool. That was a great scene. Yep, Keyes, you gotta get infected by the Flood and die in a very horrific manner. So the UNSC's plan here is basically there's a massive bridge that connects the center of Reach City to Fleetcom. A little bit like the bridge, I think it was meant to be similar to the bridge that connects Old Mombasa to New Mombasa. And the UNSC's idea is basically to bottleneck that bridge to get as many of the Covenant on the bridge as possible and blow it. So Silver Team, which by the way is missing Kai because I think Kai left Reach with Ackerson to go and train the Spartan 3s. That's how it seems based on the trailers and what she said in the last episode. But it's like Vanak, Riz, and Chief, and a bunch of Marines, and they're holding off on this bridge, and a Scorpion rolls over. And again, the Scorpion looks so cool. It even fires a white phosphorus shell, which I thought was pretty cool as well. Their eardrums are toast after that. Eventually, though, Silver Team leave the Marines there to defend the bridge whilst they go and help Keyes and Perez and the rest of them evac civilians from the top of Fleetcom's tower. And this is almost where we get to the next dumb decision. So there's a civilian evac ship leaving Reach at the top of Fleetcom tower, and Chief basically convinces Keyes to go and get aboard it alongside Soren and Halsey and Perez as well. And they're all getting the civilians on there. They get on the ship, and then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, jackals have climbed the tower and start flooding it, which jackals climbing a tower, I think that's really, really cool. That's actually really in keeping with their behavior as snipers. I thought that was a cool addition that I'd honestly like to see the games incorporate a little bit. There's some weird looking jackals. They look like slag troopers from Turok. But here we go. So brace yourself. Brace yourself here. So they get on the ship, and a little bit like in, ironically, World War Z, where they're leaving Korea and they get on the ship and they can't fly the C-130 away because there's a massive fuel pipe attached to it still. The exact same thing happens here. They're about to take off, and Keyes realizes that the fuel pumps are still attached to the ship. And someone's got to go and sacrifice themselves to unhook the pumps. And who makes the sacrifice? Is it the Marine on board or some of the civilians? No, it's not even Captain Keyes anymore. He's an Admiral. Admiral Keyes makes the sacrifice. He gets off the ship and goes and disconnects the pump lines. And then he realizes that he's screwed. He's surrounded by jackals. And he gets his pipe out, which, albeit, was kind of cool. And he sacrificed himself. Keyes dies. And yes, well, okay, we know for a fact in this show that death doesn't mean anything, because apparently Marquis back after Kai shot her in the face or something. She's alive somehow. God knows how, but yep, you're hearing right. They killed Captain Jacob Keyes before they even got to Alpha Halo. There's no way you kill Keyes before Alpha Halo, right? There's no way you kill Keyes before Alpha Halo. No way they kill him before Alpha Halo. They got the pipe at least. No way. Bruh, you can't be killing Keyes before Alpha Halo. Are you kidding me? Oh, that's f***ing stupid. That's f***ing stupid. No. Just have him walk out the fire and we'll pretend nothing ever happened. Why the f*** would you kill Keyes before Alpha Halo? Are you kidding me? As my reaction there probably showed, I am bewildered by this decision. I simply don't have words. Outside that room, the Covenant start flooding in again, and Chief and a bunch of Marines from Silver Team start holding them off from Soren and Halsey. Soren fighting alongside Chief was kind of cool, actually. And then Vargatanai, who is the elite that's the Arbiter in the show, appears, and him and Chief have kind of a cool 1v1 here, right? They're fighting, it's kind of even, and then Chief gets knocked down a little bit, and then he picks up a sword and literally ignites the sword and is about to 1v1 Gatanai, and then another elite overcharges a plasma pistol and shoots Chief and incapacitates him. And Gatanai's response, because it wasn't an honor-based fight, was to behead the elite, which actually I thought was really, really cool. However, despite Gatanai wanting a honorable fight here, this Arbiter is nothing like Fel Vadam, like the Arbiter, the main Arbiter that we know. He's absolutely not honor bound whatsoever. This Arbiter reminds me a lot more of Ripper Morimi from Halo Wars, much more of like a violent, aggressive, doesn't care about honor, very erratic and frantic Arbiter. Very violent, very almost brutish in a way, because to be fair, Ripper Morimi was kind of brutish in his like presentation and the way he moved and the way that he acted, and this Arbiter definitely feels similar. I feel like he was inspired by Ripper more so than Fel, but then don't worry, right as he's about to execute Chief, who appears but the third dumb decision in this episode? Marquis appears, and we now know for absolute certainty that she is alive. Granted, earlier on in the episode, Soren and Halsey run into her, and oh, that's another thing actually, sorry, forgot to mention that earlier. The Covenant actually have Cortana now, so you know the main thing that the whole of the Halo trilogy was about stopping, making sure that Cortana, the most important piece of human intelligence, didn't fall into Covenant hands or enemy hands? Yep, that's already happened. That kind of just happens, and it almost happens off screen. So the Covenant have Cortana now. But yep, Marquis appears, and she stops the Arbiter from executing Master Chief. She's alive. She's definitely alive. Yay. Yay! Exploiting this moment of brief ignorance from the Arbiter, Vanak grabs a needler and starts blasting him in the chest, which is pretty cool. But then the Arbiter grabs him, he disarms him, and then he stabs Vanak in the chest with a needler crystal, with a Blamite crystal, and it explodes, and Vanak actually dies. Again, death means nothing in this show because people can just apparently revive like that from the most grievous of wounds. But by the looks of it, Vanak is actually dead, which, you know what? I thought that was a pretty good death, all things considered. I don't think they should have killed him personally, but all things considered, that's actually quite an honorable death and quite a Spartan-like death. I just wish he died in his armor, man. Like, I don't know, all these scenes would have been, they were pretty good, but they would have been so much better if he was in his armor. Why have they taken the armor away from the Spartans, bro? I don't get it. So, let's recap then. Fall of Reach was going pretty well until the three dumb decisions were made. Let's count them, shall we? Number 1, the Spartans' Mjolnir has gone. They don't have it, and they likely won't have it. Number 2, Keyes dies before they get to Alpha Halo. I still can't believe they did that. And 3, Marquis is absolutely 100% alive after getting shot by Kai with a Magnum, which, by the way, fires pistol caliber 50 cals. So just keep that in mind, Dan. Keep that in mind. I can't remember what the exact caliber is. It's like 12.7 by 30 something like that. Either way, that's a big round, right? If you get shot anywhere that's not like the tip of your finger with that, you aren't surviving. And Marquis is here perfectly fine. I guess they're going to end up explaining that away as the engineers healed her, because the engineers can like kind of be used as like a MacGuffin to heal and things. I'm guessing that's going to be what we'll do there. Like the engineers brought her back to life or something. But yeah, that's episode 4, which was just called Reach. It was the Fall of Reach. It was the beginning of the Fall of Reach. I don't even know what to say, because I was actually, for the first time, sat there genuinely really enjoying this episode, and then the armor goes. Keyes dies, and Marquis alive. I'm like, well, screw me, I guess. That's what I get for actually enjoying this show for a brief moment. But yeah, leave your thoughts down below in the comments if you've watched it. Let me know what you think. I don't even know what to say at this point. Thank you all for watching. I greatly appreciate it. New video, actual proper, real main universe, the only Halo universe that matters, the only Halo timeline that matters, the real timeline. New lore video for that coming on Saturday or tomorrow, one of the two. We'll see. But But thank you for watching. Thank you for enduring this with me. I appreciate it. And I will catch you all in the next video, either tomorrow or Saturday. Goodbye, my friends. I can't believe they did that.